Hi there. In this exercise, you are asked to determine the slope, X-intercept and Y-intercept from the given equation 3x plus 6y equals 12. All right, let's just do a little review before we begin the problem. The review would entail the equation y equals mx plus b. Well, if you recall, the m is the slope, and it's the coefficient next to the x term. And the b is the y-intercept. Let me just write it all the way out. All right, so what is a y-intercept? A y-intercept is a point on the y-axis. So, for example, this point here would be a y-intercept. Let's just call it b, but remember the value of the x has to be 0. So when in this equation, the b is the y value of the y-intercept when x is 0. So this is when you assume x to be equal to 0. So from the equation of the form 1y equals mx plus b, we can determine two values, the m, which is the slope, and the y-intercept, which is the b, when x is 0. Now, we like to write the point as 0b as the y-intercept. Or you can say that b is the y-intercept when x equals 0. Okay, while we're here, let's discuss the x-intercept. Well, the x-intercept will actually be a point on the x-axis. Oh, let's hold on. Any point. So here, this is the y-intercept. This will be a point intercepting the x-axis. So here it's some x, but note that y has to be equal to 0, and we call this the x-intercept. So we're looking for 2 points. The y-intercept when x is 0, the x-intercept when y is 0. Okay, so the x-intercept is, getting back to our, on the left here, so the x-intercept is some x value when y is 0. Okay, so now let's get back to our equation. The problem is our equation of 3x plus 6y equals 12 is not in the form of y equals mx plus b. This is the form we want to get it into so we can extract the m and the b from the equation. All right, so we have to do some things here to 3x plus 6y equals 12 to get it into the form of y equals mx plus b. All right, well, in this case, we need to solve for y. That is our goal. We need to solve for y first and put it into this form right here. Okay, so let me start again with 3x plus 6y equals 12. And I want to solve for y, which means I want to remove this term on the left here. So I'm going to subtract 3x from this side and also subtract 3x from the right side. All right, this goes out, and we're left with 6y equals, now, the way it's written is 12 minus 3x, but if we want to put into the form of y equals mx plus b, I suggest we rewrite it as such. 6y equals minus 3x plus 12. Don't forget to carry the negative sign with the 3x term. All right, we still want to solve for y, which means now we have to divide both sides of the equation by 6. But be very careful. When you divide both sides of an equation by 6, you can now separate the right side. So then we get y equals minus 3x over 6 plus 12 over 6. Why am I separating it? So I can put it into the form of y equals mx plus b. All right, at this point, I strongly suggest we reduce our fractions. It turns out to be that negative 3 over 6 will equal negative 1/2. So our m is negative 1/2 x. Notice I put the x on either on the side or on the top, plus 12 divided by 6 is 2. Okay, now there's an alternative way to write this equation. This is absolutely correct, but it can also be written as such. It can be written as y equals negative x over 2 plus 2. Both are correct. All right. Now that we have our equation, we can now find m, or determine m and the b, at least the y-intercept, and then I'll show you how to find the x-intercept. Okay, so the slope is equal to m, which is right here. So the slope is negative 1/2. And the y-intercept is actually 0b, and in this case, the y-intercept is 0, 2. Now, to find the x-intercept, there's an easy way and there's a more complicated way. So remember that for the x-intercept, y has to be 0. So what I'm going to do is go back to the original equation, and then I'll also show you how to do it with the new equation in the y equals mx plus b form. So the original was 3x plus 6y equals 12. I'm going to substitute y is equal to 0 right here, and then solve for the x value, which will in turn be the x-intercept. So we get 3x plus 6 times 0 equals 12. Well, this goes out to 0. And you get 3x equals 12, or x equals 4. So that means my x-intercept is going to be 4, 0. All right, I promised to show you another way to do it, and I think it's a little more difficult, but using the other form of y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2, we can still find the x-intercept by plugging y is equal to 0. So if y is 0, I wind up with 0 equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. Subtract 2 from both sides, and you wind up with negative 1/2 x. All right, see, now we're dealing with fractions, so which makes it a little harder, but it's still doable. One way to solve this equation is to multiply by the negative reciprocal on both sides of the equation, which is negative 2 over 1, negative 2 over 1. And here, of course, negative 2 over 1 times negative 1/2 is just 1x. And here we get negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, and therefore there is our x-intercept. So when finding the y-intercept, I would use this form. When solving for the x-intercept, I suggest you use this form. It's just a little easier, but both will work. Okay, let's try another example. Let's see. Okay, we still, same exercise. We want to find m, we want to find the y-intercept, and we want to find the x-intercept. I think I'd rather put the b there. Okay, so step 1, what do? We need to solve for y. So let me rewrite the problem. So it's 5x minus 3y equals negative 15. Subtract 5x from both sides. My suggestion is right away, put the x term first, carry the sign with it, negative 5x, negative 15. Now we need to divide by negative 3 for each term. So you divide by negative 3. Now you can divide the whole side by negative 3, but you've learned that dividing the whole side by by -3 is the same as dividing each term by -3. So we wind up with y equals, a negative divided by a negative is 5/3 x plus 5. Well, from this, on the left now, I can write the m is 5/3, the y-intercept is 0, 5. And to find the x-intercept, I'm going to go back and use the original problem. So it's 5x minus 3 times y is 0 equals -15. 5x equals -15. X equals -3. That tells me that when y is 0, the x is -3. Okay, I'd like to show you, well, I think we have time, one more example. Be very careful. Okay, so the example I'll be giving you would be, I don't know, 4x minus y equals 5. Okay, well, again, you always want to solve for y. Now, there's a couple of ways to do this. Let me show you both. So let me rewrite it. 4x minus y equals 5. You want to subtract 4x from both sides. And you're left with, now be careful, here's the common error, make sure to carry the negative sign in front of the y, equals -4x plus 5. Now we're going to multiply each side by -1, or divide, it's your choice. So here this becomes y equals +4x -5. So now we have our m is equal to +4, or the slope is +4. The y-intercept is 0, -5. And going back to the original, to find the x-intercept, I'm going to let y equal to 0 equals 5. So in this case, we get 4x equals 5, x equals 5/4. So the x-intercept is 5/4 when y is 0. I promised to show you another way to do this. So given 4x minus y equals 5, some people like to transpose the y over to the right to make it positive. Remember, you're always solving for positive y. So some people just simply do this. They bring the y over to the right. They bring the 5 over to the left by transposing and changing the sign, and you wind up with the same exact form of y equals mx plus b. All right, a note about the next two lines. Y equals 3 is a horizontal line. If you, horizontal line. 2 points on this would be 0, 3, -4, 3. Turns out to be that when you use the slope formula, it turns out to be that m will equal 0. And if I want to write the equation, again, it's y equals 0x plus 3, where the slope is 0, again, and the y-intercept is 0, 3. It turns out to be that horizontal lines do not have x-intercepts. So the x-intercept does not exist. No intercept here. Okay, in the next example, you have x equals 2. This is a vertical line. I've chosen 2 points on this line. When I use the formula for slope, I wind up with a slope that is not defined. We say no slope. Vertical lines, the x-intercept is going to be 2, 0, and it never will cross the y-intercept. There is no y-intercept.